known as Stonehenge. This imposing monument has dominated the imagination of archaeologists and visitors for centuries.
The core of Stonehenge has finally been 3D mapped, and the data coming back is making even the most skeptical scientists do a double take.
Actually, Stonehenge is aligned with the sun.
If you stand in the right place, the space between the central megalith perfectly frames the sun's movement on 2 days of the year.
It turns out this ancient circle is not just a bunch of rocks standing in a field. It is a highly tuned instrument. The latest mapping reveals that the stones were shaped to amplify sound in a way that creates a sonic barrier for anyone standing outside. This level of acoustic design is something we usually see in modern concert halls, not Neolithic ruins. And get this, the mapping shows thousands of hidden markings that were never seen before. This is the biggest breakthrough in a century, and it changes everything we know about our ancestors. New Stonehenge revelations. Stonehenge has always been the ultimate puzzle for history buffs and scientists alike. For hundreds of years, people have walked around these massive stones, touching the rough surfaces and wondering how on earth they got there. But recently, a team of researchers decided to stop looking at the surface and start looking inside.
The blue stones are much smaller than the great big stones of Stonehenge. They're generally not much bigger than the human frame.
They used high-powered 3D laser scanners and ground-penetrating radar to map the core of the monument. What they found is not just interesting, it is a complete game-changer that defies traditional logic. See, most of us were taught that Stonehenge was built by primitive tribes who just happened to be really good at moving heavy objects. But the new scans show that the oldest sarsen stones, which were put up about 4,500 years ago, have a level of precision that is honestly scary. We are talking about machine-like accuracy. The surfaces of these stones are curved with less than 0.08 inches, 2 millimeters, of deviation over a span of 6.5 feet, 2 meters. That is a level of detail you expect from a modern factory, not a group of people using flint and deer antlers as tools. But it gets even weirder when you look at how the stones are actually held together. The mapping showed that the builders used mortise and tenon and tongue and groove joints. If those words sound familiar, it is because that is exactly how high-end furniture is made today. These giant rocks, some weighing over 25 tons, 22 metric tons, were fitted together like a giant Lego set. This kind of work requires an incredible understanding of geometry and physics. The crazy part is that some of the angles found in the core seem to approximate mathematical constants like pi and Pythagorean triangles. These are concepts that were not supposed to be formalized for thousands of years after Stonehenge was finished. It makes you wonder if we have been looking at our ancestors the wrong way this whole time. Instead of a slow climb toward technology, it looks like these builders started with a master plan that we are only now beginning to decode. The high-resolution scans did not just stop at the stones themselves, they also revealed that the craftsmanship actually got worse over time. In a normal human society, you expect things to get better as people learn more, but at Stonehenge, the earliest stones are the most advanced. The later additions are rougher, less aligned, and generally lower quality. It is as if the people who built the original core had a specific knowledge that the later generations were trying and failing to copy. Some people are calling this a lost technology scenario, where a highly advanced group created the foundation and then vanished, leaving the locals to try and maintain it. While that sounds like a movie plot, the data from the mapping project does not lie. The original stones are hands down the most impressive part of the entire site. What most people do not realize is that the precision seen here is not just a one-off fluke, it is consistent across the entire core. The precision in the core mapping suggests a level of planning that seems far too advanced for the era. Sonic engineering at Stonehenge. While the physical precision is enough to make anyone's head spin, the acoustic data is where things get truly wild. Scientists used the 3D models created from the scans to build a scale model of Stonehenge in a sound lab. They wanted to know if the monument was designed with audio in mind, and the results were shocking. Hey, it turns out that Stonehenge acts like a giant sound chamber. When you are standing inside the circle, mid-frequency sounds like human voices or drums reverberate for about 0.6 seconds. This might not sound like a lot, but it creates a massive amplification effect. Inside the circle, the sound is boosted by anywhere from 4 to 20 decibels. But here is the deal. While the sound is loud and clear inside, it is almost completely muffled if you are standing outside the stones. It is essentially a sonic barrier. This suggests that whatever happened inside Stonehenge was meant to stay private. It was a restricted zone where the sounds of a ritual or a meeting would be trapped within the walls of rock. And that is putting it lightly, because the stones themselves might have been chosen specifically for their sound. The smaller blue stones, which were brought from Wales over 150 miles, 241 kilometers away, are known as lithophones. And that is a fancy way of saying they ring like a bell when they are struck. For a long time, people thought this was just a coincidence. But the new mapping shows that these blue stones were placed in very specific spots to catch and reflect the echoes from the larger sarsens. It is basically a giant Stone Age speaker system. Researchers have even suggested that Stonehenge was used like a giant xylophone. The way the stones are arranged could allow someone to play the monument by hitting the rocks in a specific order. The 3D mapping also looked at the landscape around the site. They found that the natural hills and valleys actually act like a funnel for sound. If someone were shouting or drumming miles away, the landscape would carry that sound directly to the center of the monument. It is a level of environmental engineering that we just did not think was possible for people living thousands of years ago. It is not that simple, though. To design something like this, you would need to understand the physics of sound waves, which is something we did not think humans figured out until much later. The question is, were they lucky, or did they know exactly what they were doing? The resonance found in the core mapping is too perfect to be an accident. It points to a society that was obsessed with how sound could influence the mind and body. The audio secrets of the stones are just the beginning of what the subsurface mapping uncovered. Massive pit discoveries. The 3D mapping did not just focus on the stones we can see. It used ground-penetrating radar to look at what is buried beneath the grass for miles around. What they found was an entire hidden world. For a long time, people thought Stonehenge was just an isolated monument in the middle of a field, but the mapping revealed that it was the heart of a massive ritual complex. They found over 17 new Neolithic monuments that were completely buried. Some are burial mounds, others are smaller wooden hinges, and some are just weird circular trenches that we still do not fully understand. The crazy part is that these structures were all part of a single engineered landscape, and they were aligned with each other in a way that creates a giant map on the ground. The biggest discovery was something they are calling the Superhenge. This is located at Durrington Walls, just a short distance from Stonehenge. Using the mapping data, researchers found a row of up to 90 massive standing stones that had been pushed over and buried under a giant dirt wall. This structure is nearly a mile, 1.6 kilometers wide. It is absolutely enormous. Why would someone build a massive monument and then bury it? It defies all logic. But it shows that the people living here were capable of building things on a scale that we can barely imagine today. And get this, there is also a ring of massive pits, each over 33 feet, 10 meters wide, and 16 feet, 5 meters deep, that circles the entire area. This ring is over 1.2 miles, 2 kilometers across. It is the largest prehistoric structure ever found in Britain. These pits were not just random holes, they were positioned with incredible precision to form a sacred boundary. Some archaeologists think they were meant to trap spirits or mark the entrance to the underworld. Others think they were used for astronomical tracking. But whatever their purpose, the sheer amount of work required to dig them with bone tools is mind-blowing. The 3D mapping has shown that Stonehenge was not a lonely temple. It was the downtown of a massive sacred city. Every year, thousands of people would travel from all over Britain to gather here. We know this because the mapping also found traces of seasonal camps and ancient roads that lead directly to the site. It was a hub of human activity that spanned for miles in every direction. The hidden structures in the ground suggest a much larger story than just a few standing stones. Celestial math at Stonehenge. One of the most famous things about Stonehenge is its alignment with the sun, especially during the summer and winter solstices. But the new 3D mapping has taken this to a whole new level. It turns out the alignment is much more precise than we ever realized. The scanners found that the stones were shaped with specific angles to catch the light in a way that creates shadows and light beams at exact moments of the day. It is not just about the sun, though. The mapping revealed that the site also tracks the 18.6-year lunar cycle. But this is a very complex cycle that most ancient civilizations struggled to understand. But the builders of Stonehenge had it figured out. They placed specific pits and stones to mark where the moon would rise and set at its most extreme points. This level of astronomical knowledge is basically a Stone Age GPS. The mapping showed that the entire site is positioned at 51 degrees north latitude. This is a very specific spot on Earth where the sun and the moon appear to move perpendicular to each other. If you move even a few miles north or south, that alignment breaks. This means the builders chose this exact location on purpose. They knew the math of the planet. And it is not just the main site. The buried Superhenge and the outer pits also align with these celestial events. It is a massive interconnected machine that tracks the movement of the heavens with nearly perfect accuracy. What most people do not realize is how hard it is to build something like this without modern instruments. You have to account for the curvature of the Earth and the shifting of the stars over centuries. The fact that they got it right is one of the biggest wow factors of the entire mapping project. It suggests that these people were not just farmers and hunters, they were master astronomers. There are even traces of ancient carvings on the stones that were only visible through 3D scanning. These carvings show axe heads and daggers, but some researchers think they might be symbols for star constellations. The data shows that the site was constantly being updated and tweaked to stay in sync with the sky. The stars were clearly the guide, but the origin of the stones themselves is another puzzle entirely. Neolithic logistics breakdowns. The mapping project also helped scientists finally figure out exactly where these stones came from. For a long time, it was a mystery, but geochemical analysis combined with the 3D scans has confirmed that 50 of the 52 large sarsen stones came from West Woods. This is a spot about 15 miles, 24 kilometers north of the site. Now, 15 miles, 24 kilometers might not sound like a lot today.
Huge stones like this replica were quarried, carved, and then moved for many miles, some of them from as far away as Wales, 200 miles to the west.
But moving a 25-ton, 22-metric-ton rock across that distance without roads or wheels is a nightmare. Experimental archaeologists have tried to recreate this using logs and ropes. They found a 92% failure rate. The rocks are just too heavy. They sink into the mud or crush the logs. Yet the people who built Stonehenge moved dozens of them. The smaller blue stones are even more confusing. They came from the Preseli Hills in Wales, which is about 150 miles, 241 kilometers away. Some theories suggested that glaciers might have moved them, but the mapping project has debunked that. There is no evidence of glacial movement in the soil. That means humans moved them. Think about that for a second. These people traveled across mountains, rivers, and forests, carrying multi-ton stones for hundreds of miles. Why? There are plenty of rocks in England. Why go all the way to Wales? The 3D mapping shows that these stones were selected for their specific chemical and acoustic properties. They were not just random rocks, they were special. What do you think was the real reason they built Stonehenge in such a specific way? Do you believe there is still a massive secret buried under the core that we have missed? Let us know your theories in the comments below. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the latest archaeological breakthroughs, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more mysteries from around the world. See you in the next one.